And welcome to Impact 2026, our continual conversation where we talk about all types of different topics: race, religion, current events, everything that you can think of. This is that opportunity to voice your opinion, make your voice heard. So type your questions and your comments into the comment section, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, whatever type of device that you are on, however you're seeing this, feel free to type your comments in the comment section. It'll come up on the screen like you can see right here, and we will address those comments. So don't just listen to what uh, is being said. You have the ability to type in what you think, whether it be questions or comments or whatever. I like to remind people of the other things that we have going on. On Thursdays, we have Thursday Thirst. That's a weekly Bible study. It starts at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's here on Facebook and YouTube. Wherever you're watching this at, you can watch that at. On Sundays at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we have 10 o'clock a.m. We have worship service. So that's on Facebook, YouTube, but that's also in person. The address that is on the screen here. If you're in the Highland Springs, Henrico County, Virginia area, please feel free to come on and join us. And then on Tuesdays, that's today, at 7 o'clock from 7 to 7:45, we have time of prayer. And so if you're praying at any time in between 7 and 7:45, you're praying with the rest of the ministry. So please feel free to do that and participate in that process so that you can pray with the ministry. And then, of course, we have Impact 2026. And as always, we try to hop right in, don't do a lot of playing around other than letting you know the other things that are going on. Big things going on in the world. Just jump right to it. The big topic that we are talking about is what's going on in Minnesota. When we're talking about what's going on with the ICE raids and the immigrants going on out there, and more specifically talking about the death of Nicole Good. And so that's the young lady who was shot and killed by an ICE agent as she was driving her vehicle. And so depending on, I'll talk a little bit about it, but I know you already know. Her car was in the middle of the road. Not quite the middle, but it was in the road, her van. ICE agents surrounded the vehicle, asked her or demanded that she get out. She tried to back up and then speed off. And one of the ICE agents shot into the vehicle from the side and killed her. And so there's been some uproar, significant uproar from law enforcement. Many law enforcement people said that's not the way that business should be done. Even though these ICE agents aren't police officers, there is an expectation of anyone who is in law enforcement or any kind of law enforcement adjacent, federal law enforcement, customs agents, ICE agents, whatever kind of person, that you adhere to a certain standard, and that standard was not met. There was plenty of options to not kill this person, and so that's been generally accepted across the board when you listen to professionals. So whether or not they're trying to defend it or not, the legality of it or not, they do say that there were options of doing it another way, and that's not typically the way that they. That's not even typically. That's not the way the police officers are trained. And so it's been a lightning rod type situation. Because what's unfortunate is that you have people out here who are defending the killing, celebrating the killing, and saying, things like that's what you get. You should have been following directions. You wouldn't have been shot and killed. Ironically, it's many other things that you hear when they talk about Black people, especially young Black people. They're like, "Whoa, you resisted arrest, or you didn't fully follow all the directions, or you didn't speak correctly when the cop came out there, and that's why they treated you poorly, or they, attempted to kill you or took your life." So blaming the person that the cop sees, that you need to be in perfect compliance. Otherwise, you're asking to be killed. And so that's sort of what they a lot of people have been saying. And so, what is the conversation more for us? Why is it relevant to us here? The conversation is relevant to us here for 2 points. One, it's one of the number one discussion pieces that's going on right now in the world, in our world, in the United States, because people are seeing what's going on. You're seeing how ICE agent, how this immigration thing is turning into a situation where people are being shot and killed. She was this Miss Good was a American citizen. She was a citizen. What she was doing or not doing, don't know. What we know is she got killed in her neighborhood near where she lived. She got killed after dropping her child off at school, her 6-year-old. She got killed in front of her spouse. We know all those things to be true. And so when we see people celebrating and saying, well, that's what you get, or, kind of making light of the situation, it shows some of the darker side of what we got going on right now. And so it begs the question, how should we be approaching this particular topic? There were people who were celebrating when a couple of months back when Charlie Kirk got shot and killed. And now the other side or other people are now sort of celebrating when this young lady got killed. And it shows that there's a tribalism that's going on where we think that we should be, you're on this side or that side, you're in this tribe or that tribe, and we should be celebrating other people's deaths as if they are our enemies, our mortal enemies. And when they die, it's because they were our enemies, and we should be celebrating their deaths. And when one of our people die, we should be crying the blues. And I think that that's really like a sickness and a sick way for us to kind of look at these situations. And so I think regardless of if you agree with what's going on with immigration, as I've heard some people, they agree. They say, well, the law is the law, the rules are the rules. Or you disagree with immigration. Well, the one thing that is true is that a lady lost her life, that a child lost their mother, that a spouse has lost their spouse. That the community has lost one of the community members. And so regardless of how we kind of look at it and we size it up, I think we're supposed to size it up with compassion. I think we're supposed to love our neighbors. Again, she was in the neighborhood, so love our neighbors as ourselves and have compassion. At the end of the day, we wouldn't want anybody in our family shot and killed unnecessarily. Go right to the comment. Her father is a Trump supporter. He, however, is devastated about what happened to his daughter. Yeah, that has to be a tough pill to swallow, because the reality of the matter is the words of the administration has not been kind to his daughter. And so you sit back here and you support an administration that then turns around and kind of just gets at your daughter. People who celebrate someone's deaths are, from my perspective, sick. Yeah, I go right with that. You shouldn't celebrate anybody's death, regardless of who it is. Now, you can be, I'll say this. You can be, what's the easiest way? Meh about it. You don't have to be fake and be all devastated. Like, oh my goodness, this person, you don't have to do all that. But to celebrate somebody's death, that's a bit much. If you're not super sad, that's understandable. You should have some compassion to the fact of others who may be connected to them as well. So like you look at the Charlie Kirk situation. There's a lot of people who are like, he wasn't my cup of tea, didn't think he was a great person. So I'm not devastated about the fact that he got shot and killed. It is sad for his family, for his children, for people that he knew. It's sad that the fact that this was a young man that lost his life, but you don't have to be all broke up, heartbroken, and devastated about it. But at no point should you be sitting back here just celebrating it, like, this is great. Like it's not what you should do. And so I don't think that that's the way that people should operate. Now let's go back to the situation. What's problematic here is that they talk about the guy who shot him. The father of the guy who shot him was like, well, my son was a Christian man, or son is a Christian man, and he's a good Christian man, and that's what he was saying. Good police and good officer, not police officer, but good officer, ICE agent. The thing that I think where we have to look at it is, we don't know who the guy is. Now we do know about the guy. What we do know about the guy is that he previously got into a situation where, as an ICE agent, they was trying to pull somebody over in a similar fashion. They were trying to get these two people, who they considered illegal, and they were trying to apprehend them. And they decided to do a similar thing where they backed up and tried to drive off, try to escape. And he somehow got dragged behind in the car for a little bit, and then had to get stitches all, like over 20 some stitches all on his body, on his arm, I think it was maybe his leg and stuff like that. And so what you realize is, hey, he's done this before. The vice president of the United States said, well, maybe that's why he was a good little gunshot. Sounds to me like you need to learn how to get out of the way of cars. Maybe you're a terrible ICE agent. That's what it sounds like. You don't know what to do. Like, don't stand in front of vehicles, or don't get all up on vehicles. They move. People try to escape. They try to run. They get scared. They get nervous, and rightfully so, because you out here shooting folk. And so, there is that. But that's basically, for the most part, what we know about the gentleman. But what we need to know about others in the community is that there needs to just be strictly compassion on the person that passed away. Also, that we need to have compassion with one another about how when we're having these conversations, because some people are getting really hyped and really excited. But we also need to be truthful. And the fact of the matter is this: you shouldn't be shot for trying to run away. We have laws against people shooting folk in the back. That's why they very well had to say, had to say in this particular situation, they were like, oh, the woman was using the vehicle and tried to hit him and do all this kind of stuff, because no, you are not allowed to shoot people who are trying to flee. Fleeing, especially, this lady, Caucasian lady, but fleeing, especially when you're black or brown, is not necessarily I'm trying to get away. It's also I'm trying to preserve my life, because you don't know what kind of cop you're dealing with. You don't know what kind of agent you're dealing with. It's always a roll of the dice when you get out of the car, or it's always a roll of the dice when you comply. Be real. From our history and from what we've seen, it's always a roll of the dice. So when people decide to flee, it may not be I'm trying to flee because I'm trying to get away. It's I need to get to a safer place. Y'all got y'all guns drawn. Y'all have already made your decisions. Let me try to piece up and get out of here. This is a life-saving decision. And so to be trying to kill people and shoot people only only confirms the fears that people already had. Another comment. He got stitches. Good got the grave. Yeah, exactly. He got stitches in this last interaction because he was holding on and got dragged by the car, whereas you just shot into a car. And again, didn't have to. You shot from the side. You could have just stepped over to the side and gotten out of the way. But again, he may not be a great agent because he doesn't have a good relationship with cars and vehicles and his immigration actions. So, probably shouldn't have been out there in the first place. Definitely shouldn't be out there going any further. But yeah, and unfortunately, one of the other things they try to talk about is they're trying to make her look bad, Ms. Good. If you look at the reports, 4 attorneys in the Attorney General's office of Minnesota resigned today. 4, and that's because the Justice Department asked them to investigate the spouse of Ms. Good. So they asked them to investigate Ms. Good's wife, and they refused. And they said, no, we're done with this. And they resigned. And one of these was an appointment. One of these people who resigned was appointed by Trump. The other ones were career lawyers. And so they all just had to resign because they said that we're not going to do this, that there's no point to this. We're not investigating somebody's spouse because you killed them, because ICE agents killed them. And so we have people who are now making moral decisions that are affecting their life, where they're walking away from their jobs not more so their careers, but walking away from their jobs, which could affect the trajectory of their career because they're trying to stand on moral ground and do what's right. And it's a shame that it's come to that now, that it's come to people having to defend themselves. People want to defend themselves for bad actions, defend themselves for an ICE agent shooting somebody, defending themselves for those ICE agents really shouldn't be in the state or in the city at all in this big giant operation because there's nothing going on here, a massive threat. But they're trying to defend themselves so bad that they're now just trying to make people look like criminals. So another U.S. citizen who they're trying to investigate, and then you had attorneys just quit. Full. One of the comments: could he have shot trying to disable the vehicle? Could have. Could you have shot at the gas tank? Yes. Could you have shot at the tires? Yes. But one commentator just said it plain and simple. You got her license plate. You're like, she lives in the neighborhood. If she wanted to drive off, great. Let her drive off. You have her license plate. Meet her at her house. If you got any problems and you really needed to do something like, you wanted to arrest her or do whatever, just go meet her at the house. You don't have to make an emergency out of everything. And I think that's what the problem is with this particular person. An overzealous agent. And it shouldn't be defended because the problem with that type of action is the same thing we have with cops. Is every time you defend a cop that doesn't need to be a cop, every time you defend a cop that's doing an action that doesn't need to be done, you make everyone else look bad. And you make us trust you less. Like right now, you should not trust an ICE agent. You should not trust them that intellectually they're going to make the right decision. You should not trust them that they're going to keep you safe. You've seen where they're breaking windows and roughing people up, where they're arresting U.S. citizens thinking that or detaining U.S. citizens thinking that they're illegal. It is just a whole bunch of mess. And so, yeah, you shouldn't trust them at all. You should not trust them at all. But I think, again, going back to this whole thing, I think we need to have a lot more compassion. And people need to have a lot more compassion when you're talking about somebody who's lost their life. Now, here's the great part. If you look at the polls, they said only 23% of people think that the officer should not be prosecuted. They did a poll, 23% of people who they polled said, yeah, we don't think that officers should be prosecuted. They shouldn't try to sue the officer or put criminal charges on the officer. That means everyone else, for the most part, you can assume, thinks that, yeah, you should probably be prosecuted. It's a larger group, it seems like, that have become rational here. It seems like the general population, whether you are right or left, conservative, liberal, whatever you are, understands that this kind of situation shouldn't be tolerated. Now, again, there's you still have other folk who are saying crazy stuff. One of the craziest things I've heard, one of the craziest things I actually heard was one of the commentators, and they said something and no one said anything about it. And I think that's how we know that we're so far gone when it comes to loving one another and loving our neighbors. He said the guy got on TV and he said, look, every agent, every police officer, their number one job is to come home safe at night. And then he went on and said, and that's what this guy was trying to do, blah, 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 whatever. And all the people who were around the table, it was probably about 6 folk, were like, okay, and they just let that comment go. And the problem is, I don't think anybody understood that was 100% wrong. If your number one job is to come home safe every night, then you have no business being in law enforcement, being any kind of agent at all. But that should not be your number one priority. It should be protecting and serving the people, as they say with police, protecting and serving. Because simultaneously, you look side by side. Right now, they are trying to criminally prosecute the first police officer who arrived in Uvalde, Texas. If you don't remember, a couple of years back in Uvalde, Texas, what happened was a gunman came to an elementary school. And this gunman got into the elementary school, opened fire, and killed, the number was around 19 people. He shot kids and teachers, just murdered them in cold blood. And what happened was that the police were criticized because they just sat in the hallway while they heard shots instead of breaching into the classroom and taking out the gunman. So you had people they said for over 75 minutes that they just sat there in the hallway doing nothing. So this person had opportunity for 75 minutes to just go in there and just shoot and do whatever. And they said people were dying on the floor and actually died because these police officers were just in on the hallway. But what they're doing is the first police officer who was there, the one who was already at the school, they put him up and they're going through a whole entire trial and trying to decide whether or not he should be put on charges. Because what he did was he saw the gunman come in, he radioed, hey, we got a gunman. And while the gunman was going around the school to all of these locked doors, as the gunman was shooting at locked doors and going to different places around, and you heard sounds and shots, he didn't do anything. He stayed back. He didn't go and try to, he has a gun now. The gunman has a gun, but the police officer also has a gun. He didn't try to, engage with him at all, whether verbally or with force. He didn't even try to see where he was at. And so when they radioed back and asked him, like, where's the gunman at? He's like, I don't know. I think he's around the corner. And when other officers came, he said, nope, stay back because there's some shooting around the corner. And so they said the guy in Uvalde was there for quite a while, 20 minutes. I think it was 20 minutes or so. I maybe have that wrong. But he wasn't able to get into the school. He had to go to multiple doors before he was able to find one that was unlocked and get into the school. And so they want to put him up on charges because they said that this police officer failed to do their duty. He failed to try to protect and serve and save others. And so you juxtapose those two things beside each other. You have one, we're trying to prosecute somebody with criminal charges because they did not put their life on the line to save others, to stop a gunman. And then on the other side, we're sitting here saying that the number one job of an officer is to get home safe. Those two things both can't work. If you sign up to be an officer, if you sign up to be an agent, if you sign up to do anything in law enforcement, your job is to protect the people out here. And your life, as valuable as it is, and as important as it is to get back to your family, it's really not primary. It's secondary. We talk about heroes. We talk about the people in 9/11 who ran into the towers as they were falling. Many other people who gave their life in order, whether they gave their life that day or they got sick and they got like lung disease, the 9/11 disease and things like that. We call those people heroes because what they did was they ran into disaster, ran into a bad situation. We talk about people, the difference between heroes are the folk, when you hear a disaster, heroes run towards the mess, the disaster, while everybody else runs away. And so there's no scenario where we can sit back and say, well, law enforcement's number one job is to come home safe. There's no scenario where we can sit back and say a hero's number one job is to come home safe. A hero's number one job is to go out here and save, protect, and serve. Police officers is to save, protect, and serve. An ICE agent is to protect and serve because they're still a branch and an arm of law enforcement. But we don't even know that anymore because we're so far gone, I think, in our heads that we don't care about our neighbor. We care primarily about ourselves. And the problem is we don't even know when somebody else is saying something that's crazy. We think it's regular. Like everybody should have been shocked when they heard your number one job is to come home safe. And I've heard multiple people say that, but this was the most recent one. And as long as that is a comment I think that people say, and as long as that's something that we think is reasonable, well, that sounds reasonable, that sounds okay, then we're all lost. We're supposed to be neighbors to one another. And so we can't love one another if our main goal is to make sure that we are all right. That means all we're doing is loving ourselves. And that's just a sign of what's going on right now. So as we talk about this whole entire situation, the number one thing is, have compassion for the people, for the lady who lost her life. And number two, we have to remember that we can't be selfish about this. Police officers, agents, whatever, you don't have to kill if you don't have to kill. The only time you should be killing somebody is to save somebody else's life. Or maybe because the person has a gun and is about to shoot you. But not when someone's in a car trying to drive away. and not when you're standing in front of the car and you could move your butt to the side. And we need to stop putting people back out who clearly are a little too aggressive on what they're doing. If you don't get dragged by a car the last time, maybe you're the problem. You know? So I know this is just me ranting and raving on there. I appreciate the comments that came in, but I think we got to look at this. We make sure we look at this from a moral standpoint. Look at this from a Christian standpoint of being compassionate and loving our neighbors, and understanding that a lot of times the right thing to do is not to be trying to protect your life so much, but to protect one another. All right. As a reminder, let me make sure. Yep. As a reminder, we have Thirst on Thursdays, our weekly Bible study. That's at 7 o'clock. Please join us for that. On Sundays, we have worship service at 10 o'clock. Please join us for that. Facebook, YouTube, and in person, as on the address that you see on the screen. On Tuesdays, from 7 to 7:45, we have a time of prayer. And then, of course, at 8, we have Impact 2026, our weekly conversation that we have, our safe place. Now, I'll just remind people that, we do have an opportunity for people to come on, not only just a discussion, but you can actually be here in the physical form. And I am aware also, as I've talked to people, sometimes we get topics on that people want to shy away from because we're in the environment now where people are kind of checking what you're doing. And so they may check your social media, check your posts and check what you're saying. But there is also a little bit of, hey man, they might check what videos and other things are out there. And so sometimes when we hit some topics that may be a little bit weird, I'll say, I'll make sure that we don't have guests out here who may get in some trouble. If you don't care about getting in trouble, then come on and join us. But we do understand that as well. So just wanted to make sure I put that out there as a reminder. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And as always, please join us again. Have a good one.
Sometimes you'll wonder if you will be all you can be, and doubts can cloud